I don't know if this is the No Pain No Gain podcast. It might be the EMC podcast. Erinn Makes Conversation. It has a nice ring to it.
Okay, we'll see.
We're in transition, so I'm just kind of trying to soften the blow of Mondays without MEC completely. I'm
Right.
like, I'm gonna miss these conversations, so why not just continue having them? Then I never have to miss them. So thanks for joining me, Erinn. We're like further fanning the flames of this rumor that we split up for reasons other than, Issa Rae buying us out with Dame not here. Dame is busy. He was traveling. That's the only
Dave
reason.
hates us. You guys are right. He hates us. He fired us and took the MEC.
Yeah, suddenly there's just going to be a Dame's Independent pod. What is his podcast? That's just going
Independent
to
living.
Independent Living, just going to start showing up on everywhere that you would previously get episodes of MEC. How are you, Erinn, post MEC?
I mean, I even us recording a day later, I was like, felt a little bit of a loss yesterday, but I'm doing good. I think it's pushing me out of the nest, you know? So I'm like, the people have been showing a lot of love and congratulating us on the last episode. So I feel encouraged. And I think it's cool because even my little YouTube channel just got started and a couple people have found it and been like, hey, I came here because I love you on the MEC. And so I'm like, oh, okay, this is great. Like, yeah, so I feel pushed out of the nest, but a little bit sad still though, but I'm encouraged.
So initially, I know we both kind of wanted to talk about this whole gatekeeping idea because we brought it up in some previous episodes. But I think more than anything, gatekeeping in the music business has just kind of become a term that people throw out there when they don't like something. It doesn't really have a meaning. Because to you, I mean, I'm sure we've seen actual examples of gatekeeping, especially you being in the space as a woman as well. Like you've experienced real gatekeeping. Um, like what's an example of actual gatekeeping that you've seen?
The thing is, I don't know if it's gatekeeping as much as it is like nepotism. Do you know what I'm saying? Or like, yeah, putting on the people that you like more than somebody who's qualified. So I don't know. I think it's hard to quantify gatekeeping because gatekeeping denotes that it's like, well, at least my experience is that we're holding this close to you because we don't rock with you, but we're letting these people in because they've done X, Y, and Z that's required. I don't know. So like there's a ton of nepotism in the music industry, if that's what y'all are saying. Like half the label execs I know have rich fathers who were connected. You know what I'm saying? Like that. So yeah, nepotism. But I don't know. I feel like there's no way to gatekeep in this industry. There's a few opportunities. You can gatekeep opportunities. I will say that. But like by the time you get up close enough to an opportunity, if you were close enough to see what it takes to get there, then you can usually find a workaround or somebody who's willing to take a chance on you in some other direction. And even as a Black woman, I can say that. Like, I feel like a lot of opportunities are withheld from me or not even presented to me because people don't want me in the room, whether it's a comfortability thing or just an understanding of who I am or what I have to offer, or you know what I'm saying? Like I can't get inside of other people's heads. But I don't know. I think that people saying gatekeeping are so far removed from what's actually going on in the day to day. To me, when I don't get an opportunity, I don't take it as personally, but if I don't get an opportunity and then I see somebody else get an opportunity, I do some digging. And a lot of times it is they knew somebody or they were connected to this person or whatever. And to me, that's more nepotism. And it could be the same thing. Maybe people, when they say gatekeeping, it is saying nepotism. I don't know. But a lot of times it's more of, I don't want to hire this person because they actually know what they're doing. I'm more interested in somebody that I can control, or I'm interested in somebody that I can mold. Like I've seen myself be passed up for opportunities a lot of times like that because they're like, oh, she comes with an opinion and a know-how. And I would rather work with somebody who's grateful for this opportunity and not necessarily walking in confident in the opportunity, you know? So I don't know. That's my experience. I think gatekeeping is more it's just a term that's a blanket term that's used by people. I think prior to the internet age, gatekeeping had a lot more to do with racism, sexism, and things like that. So even now, hearing young white dudes on the internet complaining about gatekeeping to me just sounds like a flippant excuse in order to not have to work for, or like a reason for them to not be able to get what they want. And it's really just a way for them to bypass the hard work and just say, well, I can't because of gatekeepers.
Yeah, and the nepotism factor is just kind of present everywhere. It's nothing that's unique to the music business. For me, I had a situation where, and I have no proof of this, I know that I got under the skin of a very powerful figure in the music business who did me wrong. I mean, don't get me wrong, that it was on him. And I spoke out about it because that's me. Come on, shut up. And I'm pretty certain just because this person was a common friend, there was another really prominent musician in the music business that I was supposed to do an entire album with. We were on the phone every day working through it. I was really excited for it. And then suddenly that just didn't happen. You know, my phone call started getting ignored and nothing happened. And I thought, well, that's interesting. The reason that I connected with this artist is because of the work I did with this other guy that now doesn't like me because he did bad business, and I had to go over his head to see what the real business was. I know I'm being super vague. I just don't want to speak on it anymore. I did way back, but I don't want to get this other artist involved because I don't know what he was told about what I did. And like, all I did was assert, you know, what was right for me morally and ethically in the music business. But even though that happened, and even though at the time I was real concerned and paranoid, I'm like, hey, you know, I'm going to stop getting placements because this so-and-so doesn't like me. And now if I thought this guy back then was in a high position, he's in a way higher up position now, and I'm still getting placements, and my career's only grown since then. So yeah, you can gatekeep an opportunity, like you said, Erinn, but you can't shut somebody out of the music business entirely. I don't see how that would even be possible, especially when the music business revolves around the fan and artist relationship. You can circumvent all that. It's probably harder work if you're already in like some major label system and then you feel like you're taking a step back, but people do that all the time and still succeed.
Yeah, I think gatekept opportunities for sure. Yeah. I've like had that happen to me, but I've also done it to people. It's like, if you've been an asshole to me and my friends call me about you, I'm gonna be like, don't hire them, don't bring them around, you know? So I think that can happen to anybody, but I agree. I think it's like, if you are qualified enough to have that one opportunity, I'm not saying that it's just easy to get another one, because I'm dealing with that right now. It's like, I do feel like I'm qualified for several opportunities, and I'm seeing nepotism happen where less qualified people who have the connection to somebody is getting it. So I'm not trying to oversimplify this, but because I'm qualified, what's coming to me is going to come to me. Like, I am learning to look at rejection as protection. Like, maybe I don't want to be working with those people if they're willing to sacrifice the quality of labor and the quality of work just for convenience. You know what I'm saying? And so I think that, I don't want anybody to hear it like, oh, it's just so easy. The music business is tough. And if somebody is working to keep an opportunity from you like that, I talked about that this fall. Like, I started finding out that there were several different business people telling artists not to work with me or to talk to me because they recognized how gung-ho I am about independence and how educated I am about it. And then like telling other artists, like, if you sign, you need to have these points met, right? So it's like, there are people, I have a target on my back, so to speak. Like, I had a conversation with a label exec 2 days ago, and I was like, hey, this is why I don't feel comfortable with this thing, because I have a target on my back. And she couldn't deny it, because she's like, yeah, your name comes up in conversations. People are threatened by me. So if anybody can vouch for or speak on gatekeeping, I feel like I can, but I don't feel like to the degree that people try to make it an issue, it's not that real. It's a matter of relationships in this industry. And if people don't want to have a genuine relationship with you, that has more to do with fake people than it has to do with gatekeeping. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And so, yeah, I don't know, this industry is a weird place, but if somebody can stop one opportunity, that means that you are at least worthy of that opportunity. And there's plenty more that are going to derive from there.
And also on the nepotism factor, where if someone I think is less qualified, especially in sync, this happens. Cloud9 spoke on it. A lot of times convenience is the biggest selling point where, I think it goes both ways. If someone looks at you and is like, Erinn's way more qualified than this person that I'm just going to hire because I know them, that could blow up in their face. And, hopefully it does if that was their only qualifying factor. But in sync, Cloud9 was saying, and I feel like I'm in the same boat. Like, we're not the most talented people who are given the opportunity, but maybe we're the fastest, the most convenient, the ones who respond the quickest. And so the company's just going to be like, yeah, we could take a gamble on this person who's more talented and who may create a musically better product, but will their product work? Is it fine? Yes. And will they get it to us quickly and in the format that we request? Absolutely. So we're going to go with them. And a lot of times that happens, but I see, and I'm talking about real gatekeeping. I mean, if gatekeeping simply means to control and limit an opportunity, which I think by definition it does, then I can think of great uses of gatekeeping. Like if someone's like, hey, should I date this woman? I'll be like, no, she cheated on her last boyfriend. That's my cousin. She cheated on my cousin. So you shouldn't date her. That's kind of gatekeeping. Like, I thought of a few scenarios. So scenario one, a producer sends me loops that they stole that could get me in trouble, and I don't use them, and I tell other producers to avoid them. Am I gatekeeping? Yeah, but I'm taking care of the people around me. Scenario two, this is one that happens all the time, especially in my city. If you're a promoter, right, in this scenario, and a rapper has never performed before and has no fans, but wants an opening slot on your biggest show that you've just invested $40,000 of your own money into. If you say no, are you gatekeeping? A lot of people, including myself, when I was starting out and I was in rap groups trying to get shows, I'd be like, yeah, they're gatekeeping. They want to block me from an opportunity. It's like, I don't have fans. Why would they invest $40,000 in something and then pull me into that when I have no value to add to the situation that they know? Scenario three, this has to do kind of with last week's episode of the MEC, which I can't really refer to as last week's episode without qualifying it as the MEC podcast, because this is technically the EMC podcast. So you start getting some traction in the music business and you're now talking to a booking agency. Your friend, a rapper who doesn't work hard and has a bad attitude, asks you to introduce them to your contact at the booking agency. There's a good chance they'll burn that bridge for you. Are you gatekeeping if you don't connect them with those people? I know you've lived this scenario out many times, Erinn.
Time and time again. Yeah, I think both of those two last examples are so necessary, because I think that's where a lot of people say gatekeep. Like with the show or any big opportunity, when people feel like they're entitled to that, then they feel like if you are not giving them, but it's like, in business, things have to be mutually beneficial. Like, if there's no reciprocity, like, I had somebody DM me recently and I haven't answered the DM yet because it was like paragraphs, but the first thing that they were basically asking me about was, I'm looking for a booking agent. And I wanted to just respond. I want to read the whole thing so they don't feel like I'm being like curt, but I wanted to be like, if you're not booking shows already, why would a booking agent want to work with you? You know what I'm saying? Like, it's got to be mutually beneficial. Like, if I know as a booking agent that I have relationships with venues, concert promoters, whatever, and I can get somebody booked, why would I book you? Like, what's the benefit?
Yeah.
And I don't think that people think that way. So the same thing when it comes to somebody being like, yo, can you connect me? I had a really good plug. I had like the guy who was the lead sync guy over NBA 2K. Like, he had he had basically one of our songs, one of Caleb Mitchell's, one of the artists I represent, his song got in an NBA 2K. I didn't know they reached out to us, right? So it was super dope. Song gets placed, amazing, right? So then he's at A3C months later speaking on a panel. And so I just go up after, I'm like, yo, you like put Caleb's song in here. Thank you so much. Like, it's super dope to meet you. So he immediately is like, yo, okay, dope. Here's my direct email. Send me new stuff, whatever, whatever. I'm talking to a friend, you know what I'm saying? Just telling them the story, like, yo, it's so crazy. Like, dude was super cool and down to earth. Like, I was impressed because, a lot of times those guys tend to be, for good reason, closed off.
Yeah,
because they have people consistently pitching to them, asking them for stuff. And I wasn't asking, I'm like, we were already in NBA 2K. I just want to thank you. And I think he could read that. And he was like, yeah, I love your artist. Like, send me new stuff. I'm telling my friend this. Cool. I just leave it at that. 2 months later, my friend is like, yo, check out this new song I have. And I'm like, okay, cool. Like, dope song. And then like a week later, he's like, yo, so can you hook me up with your NBA 2K guy? And I was like, how do you navigate that? Do you know what I'm saying? It's like,
yeah. Because I mean, if it fits, it fits. But if it doesn't, now you have to explain that, and
the song kind of fit, but the mix wasn't good. And something that the NBA 2K guy had emphasized over and over again was like, I tend to work with active artists because it makes our game more relevant. This artist had like not even 1,000 monthly listeners. You know what I'm saying? It's like, okay, cool. You made a basketball song. There's a million people sending him basketball songs. We didn't have a basketball song. Our song was just like a hard-hitting hip-hop track. But he says, like if that's why they release so many editions now, so that it creates more traction for the game and more people want to play it and people change the song. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, we still get videos of people changing in player mode to our song. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, it's such a hard place to put a friend in, especially somebody who's connected in the industry. Do you know what I'm saying? And I the way I dealt with it, I basically was like, well, I kind of sidestepped it and walked around it. But I think if you think about somebody who's even 3 steps of separation from me, somebody that I know, but I'm not considering a friend, and they see what I'm doing on Instagram, and then they send me something, and then I don't respond, or I respond like, hey, I don't think this is a great opportunity for me to be a part of. Immediately, somebody is like, she's gatekeeping. Mm-hmm. And I think that it's just like, if you think about from a gatekeeper's, whoever you're classifying as a gatekeeper, if you think from their perspective, what is the benefit for them to pass you along? And people are like, well, community, people should show love, da, 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 da. It's like, I'm showing love every day, all day to people who are in my direct community.
Yep.
If you are new to my community, I need you to show love in my direction multiple times before I'm showing. Okay, I'll tell you this. I'm releasing an ebook on my birthday. It's called How to Be Excellent, The Beginner's Guide to Achieving the Unbelievable. One of the reasons I'm dropping this book is because so many people ask me to show them love. So my thought is, the next person who asks me to show them love, I'm like, buy my ebook. My hope is that you read the ebook and you understand that it's a multi-step plan, because I talk about it essentially in that book. But at very least, you're learning what reciprocity looks like. If you're like, well, why I got to buy your ebook? My next question is going to be like, then why do you want help from me? Do you know what I'm saying? But I don't have that bargaining chip.
You'll have an answer for that, though.
Yeah. So now I'm like, okay, I'm putting this shit out because so many people ask me for favors. And when I don't give them, I'm marked as a gatekeeper. Like, how? You just DM'd me. I don't even know you exist. I didn't know you existed until this very second,
Well, the argument is that because you're already in this position that you need to remember where you came from, and everyone had a humble, and like, I love when people say that to me, where someone will ask me for a favor and I'm like, I can't, or usually I just don't even respond, and it's like, oh, I see how you are. You think you're too Hollywood. You think you're too good. It's like, actually, I'm working 16 hours a day. I'm really living this. But the fact that you will say something to the effect of, you used to be where I was, and it's like, when I was where you used to be, what I was doing was networking with people. And then years later, it paid off. I was working. I was keeping my head down working. And what I wasn't doing was granted, I did expect some stuff. Not going to lie. I did expect people to just give me favors out of nowhere. When the tide shifted for me was when I realized, and I think it was early on when I was still in rap groups, not that I'm not anymore, but like when that was really what I thought my in on longevity in the music business was, rather than me just, building myself up. I was frustrated with not getting booked and not getting media coverage. And I was like, man, they're just gatekeeping. They don't want anyone new to shine. When in reality, people love working with new people. The media loves covering new stories. Venues and promoters love finding new artists that they can book, as long as those artists are professional and bring bodies through the door. All we had to do was prove that we could do that, and then go to those people. And it was, like you said, it's a matter of showing love to people, showing up to the events, supporting them, reading the articles in the case of media, following them on social media, having conversations with them, inviting them to our events, putting them on the guest list. Very simple gestures that don't cost us anything but some time and energy. And next thing you know, we're having conversations and communication, that they're the seed to everything. Sending someone a DM, the craziest DM. And I get this a lot. Sorry to the person who just sent me this. This isn't really about you. A lot of people send me this. They'll say, hey, I'm going to send you, or I'll let me send you a beat, and you can get it placed for me, and then you can keep 50%. And I'm like, but I make beats. If I place my own beat, I get 100%. Why would I do all the work for you just to get 50% when I could do it for myself and get 100%? And I don't know you. Granted, if you're one of the people that I work with every day and you've shown love and whatever, then I'm going to prioritize our relationship and opportunities that benefit you as well as me. But if I don't know you, I have a lot of people standing behind me that I actually love and care for and have worked with and trust. Why would I give you this opportunity? And, the last person, I was surprised that sent me that DM. I was like, hey, no, because why would I give you 50% of something when I provided the opportunity out of nowhere, when I could just give it to myself or someone else that I know better than you? I don't know you. This is the first time we've interacted. And he was like, oh yeah, you're right. That makes sense. I was like, oh, my mind is blown, because you actually saw the logic behind what I was saying. A lot of people don't see that logic, and they just freak out and like, yeah, you forgot where you came from. You think you're better than me, this and that. And I don't think I'm better than anyone. I think I'm infinitely smarter and more reasonable than somebody who has that kind of reaction to my reasonable response. But it's the music business. Again, people don't ever see the work that goes behind it. And even when they do, even when they watch the damn Kanye documentary, which I still haven't seen, even when they watch all these documentaries about an artist come up and they sit there and like, wow, he worked really hard for years and years and years. That goes over a lot of people's heads. I don't know.
The Kanye documentary specifically, it's like, if they watch that, this man was in the Def Jam office and they were like, it's cool that you rap it all, but we want you to make beats. Do you know what I'm saying? It's like, even if you consider that gatekeeping, then of course, but again, they didn't want to take a chance on him as a rapper when there was proof of concept as a producer. So yeah, it blows my mind when people, it's like they can't draw the comparison between anything else. Like, and they're not even, a lot of people who are asking things of us aren't willing to give that same thing. Do you know what I'm saying? Like a lot of people DM me like, yo, I would just love to pick your brain. I'll do whatever it takes to be around you. And I'll be like, cool, you can get on a call with me. Link is in my bio. And they always, either they won't say anything after that, or if they come back, they'll say something like, I got to get my money together and I'll get on the phone with you. My thought process is, if somebody's really my hero or I'm willing to do anything to get on the phone with them, I'm already prepared for that. You know what I'm saying? Like there's this woman I wanted to talk to at the end of last year. And I'm like, hey, do you have consultations? Like send me a link. That joint was $1,000 for 30 minutes. And I was like, sheesh. Like, like sheesh, but I really wanted to talk to her. And so I was like, all right, let's do it. But then it ended up not working out for her schedule. Then I had a run in with somebody, like with her vicariously. Do you know what I'm saying? And I was like, I actually don't want to talk to this lady because I see what type of person she is. But I'm saying, even for me, like I was willing to spend that money because I needed to talk to somebody who understood the experience that I was going through. And I'm like, I need a woman in the music industry that functions on a high level, that's pulling in multiple six figures, because I haven't gotten there yet. And I'm really struggling to get to that place. So let me see what she has to offer on this. You know what I'm saying? Like at her level, I could have been like, man, you're pulling in multiple six figures. You don't need this $1,000 for. I'm not doing that. If I'm reaching out to you, I'm saying, if I genuinely feel whatever it takes, I'm gonna do it. That's why I get so frustrated. It's like everybody who's saying that we're gatekeeping or whatever, we're really protecting our time. We're protecting our energy. We're protecting, because if you can't say that, oh, this is worth the investment of X, Y, and Z, you know what I'm saying? Like, even people who want to talk to you, you are so transparent on the podcast and in your content about like, I'm willing to help somebody if they're trying to help themselves. If I wanted to talk to you, Pain, I would watch a bunch of your interviews to see like what your temperament is and how you talk. And then I would buy a beat. Even if I'm not a rapper, like if I'm another producer, whatever, I would buy a beat and be like, hey, bro, just bought a beat, just a couple of questions. Because I know you'd be like, oh, they're investing in themselves. But so many people want
Or
to
a drum kit, sample pack, whatever. Yeah.
yeah, sample pack anything just to be like, yo, like I'm trying to get, like, even if they were a music exec, do you know what I'm saying? And they wanted to like, because you function on so many sides, it doesn't have to just be an artist. But what I feel like is people who see a clip on social media, they want to hit play, then they want to say, this is the person to help me. Let me DM them up. They don't want to respond. They're a gatekeeper. And it's like, I think that there's so much laziness involved with labeling somebody that, because truth of the matter is, even if you send me if you say the right words in a DM, like if you reference an interview that I've done, or you reference something on the MEC podcast, or you know what I'm saying, then I'm like, oh, they're paying attention, they're investing in themselves, and they've taken the time to learn who I am. Even then, I'm probably going to respond to the DM with a little bit of something. But if you're just like, yo, sis, love what you're doing, I see you out here killing it, that's how a lot of people start. I just wanted to pick your brain about, or can you help me out with, no, no.
And it's always big money making questions. It's like, hey, how can I set up my business for financial success? And it's like, that's a 4-year degree. Are you seriously asking me that? But what's funny too is, let me share my screen quick, because I have I'm not going to share this other one because it's stupid, but I've been called a gatekeeper many times, and I don't know how to share my screen. Oh, here, never mind. I'm being slow. Recently, this was the least popular tweet that I ever sent out, the most controversial tweet, even though it was true. All I said is sampling existing songs isn't fair use, which is 100% true. It doesn't fall under the fair use doctrine. So this guy, I don't know who he is. I don't know what any of that means. He said, producer's life is short. Do what you like and ignore the gatekeepers. So here I am giving actual information that's factual, and I'm being a gatekeeper. So I explain it with an insult because, yeah, he's dull. And you can dislike me for that. I don't look, if I call someone a name just because I'm frustrated, this is like the 80th message I've gotten that day, and then I will get 180 more. Doesn't give me a right to call the guy a dullard. It doesn't. I'm owning that. But then the guy responds, ignore this gatekeeper. But it's just like, what is gatekeeping? Because I thought it was someone who's blocking opportunities, not giving information. So this notion of, I mean, it's like, It's like someone saying, I was at the gas station and they treated a white customer very well, and then they asked me for my ID with my credit card and treated me like shit. That seems like racism. Someone's like, oh, it's pretty racist of you to be pointing that out. You don't know. It's just like, you can't just, that's what people do on social media. There's a word that has a long established definition and application, and they're like, you know what? Let me change this word up to fit my narrative. And then a whole bunch of people are like, yeah, that sounds good to me. Let's do that.
I don't understand how he called you a gatekeeper, though,
because he's dumb.
Fair use. Like, I'm confused. Like what? I don't see what are you prohibiting people from?
From being ignorant, I guess. And so I think a lot of people will defend their right to be ignorant in a space in which they're not judged for their ignorance. And I don't judge people for their ignorance. I think everyone's ignorant. I mean, we're all ignorant about 1,000,001 things. I happen to be not so ignorant when it comes to laws that govern my career field. A lot of people in the music business are incredibly ignorant. There's a lot I still don't know, but there's stuff I learned. Well, I learned something the other day actually about the music business that was amazing. So I'm always learning, and I don't think I'm the smartest person in the room, but this pride that comes with being ignorant, and then also having social media, which people see as a mandate to express your opinions, even if they're not based on facts. That's what's crazy. And that's really hurting a lot of people. But again, those are the people that end up getting gatekept out of certain opportunities just because either their attitude or they're ignorant. They're just
if you're dumb, you will get gatekept against. I will say that. Like, and I actually somewhat experienced this with an artist that I was potentially gonna work with. And it was like multiple things kept being exposed, like how ignorant they were. And I just like mentioned it to a colleague because I was annoyed because they were like trying to tell me. And I'm like you, I'm not going to claim that I'm the smartest person in the room. I'm not the most gifted businesswoman, none of that. But what I do have is a ton of experience, a ton of years of research, but literally we teach this for a living. Do you know what I'm saying? It's like we have the MEC, and not just that, like I actually, you know what I'm saying? Like Zoo Labs paid me to create a course. Like I'm working on a course with a really prestigious organization right now. Like this is like actually what I do for a living. So for you to only have your career as your realm of experience and be consistently telling me like, oh no, it should go this way. This is how I do things. I'm like, okay, yeah, I get that. Like that's super within your prerogative, but like this is how the industry works. And I'm not one to defend the industry standard by any means, but sometimes it's like when there's a precedent set, you're like, well, this is what people do and this is how it's done. And this is, and I kept just running into, well, I'm uncomfortable with that, or that doesn't make sense. Or so I'm mentioning this to a colleague just out like, oh, this is frustrating, da, 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 da. And this colleague just turns to me and is like, well, if you're wondering why that particular person has been struggling with their career, this is one of the reasons. And I was like, oh, shoot, their reputation precedes them, that they're just kind of like a dumbass, essentially. Like, for lack of a better, like they just don't know things. And instead of being around people who know, they just like, I don't want to do it if it's uncomfortable to me or if I don't understand it. And this is why I tell artists where you got to be really careful. Artists are a dime a dozen. People will take a lesser talented, easier to work with artist. They'll take somebody who has less streams and more willingness. You know what I'm saying? Like, and artists get caught up in like, I've done this, and this. People need to want to work with you. People will want to work with you to an extent, but if you can gatekeep yourself and think it's everybody else. And with this artist, I started seeing that. I'm like, oh, there are opportunities passing them by because they refuse to learn or to listen. And I think that that's what happens a lot more often. Gatekeepers aren't keeping you out. You're keeping yourself out.
And the way I feel about that is that translates over to the way that you interact with fans. So if you're not willing to listen to the people in your life that are working with you on a collaborative and professional capacity, how are you going to treat your fans? And that's eventually going to get them to distance themselves from you. And you see artists disillusioned with fans all the time. Sometimes it's not even the artist's fault, and the fan just expects a lot from an artist, a lot of personal attention and so forth, just because they've been quietly and unbeknownst to the artist supporting them emotionally. So, and like, artists don't know that. I feel like that's excusable, but a lot of artists just don't. They I don't know what the attitude is, but yeah, they'll gatekeep themselves from opportunities simply by just not being easy to deal with. And it's not about standing up for yourself. If there are people that don't want to work with you because you're standing up for yourself, that's a different story. But if you're just simply not listening and you're always the common denominator and you never pause and think, was any of this my fault? Even if I was in the right, was the way I communicated and behaved in that situation, and maybe was I reactive? Was any of that my fault? Can I change any of that? A lot of people just don't. I think it was fun. You mentioned artists are a dime a dozen. I think all creatives, to an extent, are, but so are employees, and that's a different conversation. But it drew up it evoked, I should say, some ghosts of this whole AI conversation. And I feel like now, the same way NFTs and Web3 turned every armchair spectator of the music business into a sudden expert. It's like, NFTs are going to change the game, and here's how, just because I said so. Now AI is like the new NFT, where everyone's saying, yeah, artists have to do this, artists have to do that. Now that AI is coming, this is what it's going to do. This is what, and none of it's grounded in the music business, like the Grimes thing. Why doesn't Drake just do what Grimes does? It's like, because Drake is signed to a label, he can't do what Grimes does. You don't understand the music business. How are you feeling
More
about?
People are trying to use Drake's voice than Grimes' voice, respectfully.
And that was a point I made too. Who is rushing? I'm not saying people aren't. One, Grimes is already famous, and she's an early adapter of AI. I think that's going to serve her well. But even her split, which is 50%, and she still gets to control it, and said that if she doesn't like some shit, she'll copyright strike it. Granted, I respect that, because I think that's how sample clearance and other things should work, but it doesn't. And either way, I don't think that, like you said, it's like NFTs, where people are just like, any old artist can come out with an NFT. Now people are like, this is the future for artists. Make your AI available, make your voice available freely for a split. And it's like, so somebody with 5 monthly listeners can do that all they want, and they're not going to get anything because no one cares. So I don't know. What else are you seeing with the AI conversation? How are you feeling about this new frontier in the music business?
I will say AI makes a lot more sense to me than NFTs, and I do think it is going to put the industry on its ass in different ways. Like, I think that we're going to start seeing label contracts where they ask for you to grant them the right to your voice, so that when you die, they can keep making hits, which is, to me, really scary. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, it's scary in a lot of ways without me getting into conspiracy theories, but it's like there's a ton of predatory things that labels do, especially when they feel like you're going to be a big artist. That's why Prince became the artist formerly known as Prince, because they owned his name his likeness, his like they didn't own his voice, but like there were so many derivative things of him as an artist that they had the right to, and the exclusive right to, like outside of him. It's him as a person, he's creating it, and they had the right to it and he didn't. So I think that, yeah, so I do think that a lot of people are making claims that, like, I think that right now Grimes is cool with it, but I think that if her voice starts being abused, or if she's just getting track after track after track being put out, I think she may be like, hey, I'm reconsidering my stance on this. But I agree, as far as like small independent artists go, when they're saying like if you already don't have any traction, it's not going to create more traction for you. And even like with the Drake, the Weeknd situation, that guy had to hide. Like he put it out under Ghostwriter and would like put it under like a blanket LLC. I think they already found out who it was. I don't know if that's come out, but I think that yeah. So like even just to get that off, it took, that person knows about the music industry. You could tell. That's the thing. I think that's low key why it hasn't come out, because that could have been somebody trying to make a point. The fact that it was called Ghostwriter, okay, you know a bit about the music industry, and then the fact that you had to figure out the LLC that it was released under and how they, you know what I'm saying, Ghost Boy, them going to TikTok first, then putting it on DSPs. Somebody knows a little bit of something about the music industry. And so I feel like even for independent smaller artists, you can only use things to your advantage when you actually understand the industry. And a lot of people talking don't understand the industry. Same with NFTs. Every time we had a conversation with somebody outside of Latasha, it was like this. Like they would get to a point, we would ask them to explain the point, and then it was like, oh, let's just talk around this point, da 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 da. So I think with AI, it's a little bit easier to understand, but I think it's going to affect more industries more rapidly than the music industry. Like I was watching this video the other day of a guy editing a podcast with AI. And on Adobe, it's doing everything for him. It's like, it was finished in like 5 minutes. To me, right now, that seems really accessible and incredible, but like I'm always leery of anything that's artificial. Do you know what I'm saying? I understand that it serves a lot of things, serve a purpose, like artificial limbs, artificial hearts. Like I get that these things can be beneficial, but by and large, the way that they're growing our food artificially is killing us. You know, the way that all of even our supplements and different things like that are genetically grown. You know what I'm saying? Like the lights that we use in our homes instead of getting sunlight are depriving us of nutrients. And do you know what I'm saying? So like, I understand AI is the future, it's the present, and I think that there are benefits to it. But by and large, I think that AI is a lot more scary and has a lot more present opportunity than NFTs ever did. I think that NFTs will be affected by AI a lot more than the world was affected by NFTs. So like if AI can now maneuver and think through how humans need to evolve, or how humans need to adapt NFTs into their life, then yeah, I think that we're going to start to see some changes. But yeah, I don't know. It's a scary world. I mean, I use Chat GPT. You know what I'm saying? I'm familiar. I'm not scared to adopt and move forward, but I do think that I think AI has a lot more capabilities than NFTs did or do. That still could be my ignorance to NFTs, but I've never had anybody explain it to me. Even people working in big tech that had, and then we've seen it already fade out. Like all those companies that were getting funded, there's still some around, but it's like most amazing people, celebrities, artists, whatever, dropped an NFT and then they got out the game, you know? And it's like, it was a gold rush. Whereas I feel like AI is definitely here to stay. I think the AI is going to move faster than the regulations. I think that people are already going to be dependent on it way too hard. And I don't know, it's an interesting and scary place to be.
What would be a crazy plot twist is if Ghostwriter is actually Quentin Miller.
Yo.
I would love that, actually.
Oh my gosh. Yo.
But I do feel like, so have you seen the videos where it's like, you know, random producer uses AI to mimic Kanye's voice, and you're like, oh yeah, that sounds like Kanye, and it's a cool little song, but it's not it doesn't sound like something that like anyone would
Like the
listen to.
quality of writing, right?
Yeah, it's just a novelty. It's like, oh, that's cute. The Drake and Weekend thing, you can tell that person has writing experience.
Yeah.
That's not someone that just stumbled on AI and is like, let me try this out. Let's see. And that, but
Facts. That's
that's
what
the
I'm saying.
beauty
They're
of the
really a
internet.
ghostwriter.
Mhm.
Dang.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm looking at that and like,
Is that
granted,
the conspiracy theory that you're starting? Let's put that out there. You think that Ghostwriter, Ghost Boy on TikTok could be Quentin Miller? That would be insane. That would be really him like starting to exact his revenge. You know what I'm saying? Maybe
it
he
would
does
be.
that to get the attention of the people who owe him money. That's actually wild. Yo.
I mean, if anyone's going to be able to do it that fluently, he's in the running.
Yeah, because he can write for all of these people. He could drop one of those for every. I'm like if he had whoever it is, if they had enough time, had they known that it was going to take off like that, they probably would have released several other tracks. Just so like I thought it was very fascinating. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying I know a lot of people were upset, but I thought it was a fascinating experiment to see how quickly the music industry was going to buckle. And I think the most egregious part of it all was UMG saying,
we care about artists. We're doing it for the art.
The artists have the right to be compensated fairly. And I was like, okay, UMG, sure.
Well, for the record, I think Drake getting 400 million is fair compensation, but at the same time, yeah, he's Drake, and they wouldn't be saying this about anybody else who's lower than Drake is. Drake in the Weekend and Metro Boomin. Let's not forget that was a deep fake Metro Boomin beat. I shouldn't even say deep fake because none of this was generated by AI.
Trash, to be honest,
I liked it. It didn't sound like Metro though.
On behalf of Metro for them trying to make that a Metro. That's why I was like, hey, no way, this is a Metro beat. That's crazy.
It didn't sound like a Metro beat. But yeah, I mean, like the song itself was written and performed by a human, 100%. The only AI part was the voice mimicry. And so I think the fact that AI is now becoming the centerpiece of this conversation is kind of funny because it's really not. Laws governing mimicry and impersonation and artist likeness and intellectual property related to all of those topics, that's really what's at the forefront of this conversation. But more on AI later. I want to make a whole part 2. I've just been talking about AI a lot. I think it's interesting because never have I really been active in the music business education space as something like this is unfolding. We talked about NFTs, but again, I was never feeling like anything was gonna, like, NFTs weren't transformative. They were helpful to some. For the most part, artists and consumers didn't even know what was going on in that world. AI, suddenly this is big because it's affecting the average consumer. It's catching their eyes and ears, and a lot of people are weighing in. A lot of technology. I mean, this Ghostwriter thing, even though it really technically wasn't all AI, and like the AI was kind of secondary, if not tertiary, to the track and the ensuing conversation. It's still lighting a lot of fires under other folks' asses all across the board. Producers, songwriters, I think this is going to change the songwriting game when if you're writing a song for Drake, have it in his voice. If you're writing a song for Ariana Grande, have it in her voice. It's way more appealing that way.
But even jumping into Chat GPT and being like a Drake type verse, and Chat GPT like scrubbing the internet for every Drake type verse and all of Drake's music, and then coming up with that, to me is even scary in a way, because it's like, obviously a lot of songwriters work in the space with the artists, but a lot of them are just recording demos. And like you said, if I get a verse, and then I can record it in his voice and send it to him. It's like, I feel like a lot of artists would hate that. I know my artists would. If a songwriter sent them like an AI version of their voice, like, hey, I wrote this for you, they would lose their mind. They'd be like, nope, we're not.
But according to Carl Folks, that's illegal because it's taking existing copyrighted materials and then creating a derivative work from them. So ChatGPT is essentially sampling. And so that would just be an uncleared sample, it would infringe on the underlying composition among other laws. So that's to me why AI is so interesting, because now we're learning so much about how intellectual property works. And, you know, I've been wanting laws to change and technologies to change to adapt to the way the music business actually works. Like, why is Content ID not allowing for beat leasing? Why is Content ID so restrictive? Why is DMCA being abused? And it's like, the music business doesn't give a goddamn about any of that, because it's not affecting them. It's affecting people like us who are actually out here working every day. Suddenly AI comes along and it's Drake and The Weeknd and Metro Boomin, and the label that represents all three of them is up in arms and talking about, yeah, we're here to preserve blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, you have deals with Spotify. You don't care about this stuff. So, you know, I think it's Andy. I don't really have a dog in the race. Part of me wants to be like, yeah, UMG, do the right thing, because this is terrifying. But then another part of me is like, well, you're investing in AI platforms quietly anyway. So, and what you said about artists having it in their agreements, where, you know, why wouldn't UMG create The Weeknd AI app? Why wouldn't they? If they can get him to opt in, they might already, based on the laws, based on the legislation. I wouldn't be surprised if the labels just retroactively owned all of these artists' voices already. So next thing you know, we're going to get an Aretha Franklin AI. You know what I mean? Because who knows what contracts, because they did it with streaming.
What I'm saying.
They did it with streaming. You know, all these legacy artists, they didn't opt into streaming because it didn't exist. We didn't have the internet in the 60s, but somehow all their music is on the streaming platforms and the labels are getting the majority of it. So I think it's going to be interesting to see what happens. I don't look at it as a great democratization of the music business at all. I think it's going to be more of the same.
For sure. Scary times.
Well, I'm sure we have more stuff to talk about, but we'll be back. I don't know if this is going to be a regular cadence, but I'm going to try to make it a regular cadence because I do enjoy having these conversations. And you know, when we announced the end of the MEC podcast, there was an outpouring of support, and I appreciate that. And leading up to it, we were getting, you know, a lot. I mean, we were getting tens of thousands of new and repeat listeners. And why stop the momentum? And who knows? Maybe we still, in all honesty, don't fully understand, and I don't think they do either, how the relationship with radio is going to look in practice, nor in the future as it evolves. So I'm if anyone from radio is watching this episode of the unauthorized MEC podcast, hey, we're here, we're making content, and however we can work together, let's work together. So appreciate all of you tuning in. Thank you, Erinn, for joining me. And yeah, and next time we might have the whole gang back. We'll see. Peace.